everyone. My name is Jeffrey Craig, Marketing Director at MEXC Global. I'm here today with Badeo Mender, co-founder of Joystream, a video platform protocol. This event today is part of MEXC's Project Spotlight series, where we speak with top leaders and innovators from Web3, blockchain, and crypto. So today I'm going to ask Badeo a few questions about Joystream, and let's get into it. So first, hello Badeo. Can you describe what problem Joystream is trying to solve, as well as a vision for the project?
Sure. So Joystream, as you said, is a video platform protocol. So by video platform, I want you to think of something like a YouTube or a TikTok. And these are really the largest online platforms today. So YouTube alone has about 2.5 billion monthly active users, about 50 million creators or so. It's been estimated to be worth as much as $500 billion. So they're really gigantic and very influential, and they're also growing. I think one thing that's very underappreciated about many of these platforms is that the products on top of them actually sit in a very large design space. So for example, when you think of a user experience around user-generated video content, you have to take a position on like the user interface, the features. Perhaps you could imagine there being a content vertical, a certain kind of content format that you may want to focus on. There's the whole question of algorithmic recommendations, how you do moderation, community guidelines, which is a huge topic for YouTube. Of course, there's a very big space of questions around monetization. So there are all sorts of things you have to take a position on. And what we see as the main problem with platforms like YouTube is that really they can only sit in one point in this design space because they have one organization, one bureaucracy. They have to run a certain number of experiments. They own all the data, and then they pick some position in that design space, which is sort of like a least common denominator across those billions of users. And, while those platforms are great, we think there's a big opportunity there to be able to unlock a lot more innovation, because most of the creative people and ideas and inspiration and thoughts about how to use all that data and, the millions of new videos that come online every day, that sits in the minds of all the builders and developers that are outside of the relatively small YouTube organization. So kind of the main problem we see is the inability to scale up the innovation around this pool of data, which is so valuable. So the vision around Joystream is really to have all of the world's user-generated video content live in one public mega index that has a large ecosystem of applications built in a permissionless way to deliver new experiences to users, and also allows creators to own their data, to have kind of property rights in the presence that they build, and of course for developers to know, in perpetuity they have neutral access to the same APIs as everyone else. They can't get rugged, they can't get their whole business undercut. So that's kind of the problem and vision that we're focused on.
Wow, yes, thank you so much for that great overview. The video space is definitely primed for disruption in the Web3 industry, so thank you for that. Going on to our next question. So how did you come up with the idea of developing Joystream? And then going off that, could you introduce some of the team's background?
So the Joystream project actually stretches really far back. So I got into this space in 2014. I finished my PhD in computational neuroscience at the University of Oxford. And, that had been this huge run-up in Bitcoin in 2013. I was extremely intrigued. The technology was, extremely exciting. There were lots of thoughts about, really payments at the time. That was like the thing. There wasn't really even blockchain. There was just like value transfer of various kinds. And I got really excited about finding a use case for that kind of permissionless protocol for payments. So I started to build actually a version of BitTorrent where people got paid to contribute their bandwidth. I'm not sure how many people know about BitTorrent today, but it was this hugely successful peer-to-peer kind of data transfer system, which always suffered from not having incentives built in. So I started to build that, and that was really on Bitcoin because that was the only thing that you really could build on at the time. And I built a prototype, raised some money, met my co-founder Mukhtar. And then as we continued to kind of build it out into a fully fledged product, we saw that the space was kind of growing and evolving. It became easier for you to build your own blockchain. It became easier for you to tackle a broader set of issues using the same technology. It wasn't just value transfer anymore. So that happened in concert with us kind of understanding more about BitTorrent itself, which, it had a lot of flaws. It didn't really become the dominant paradigm. But one thing that ecosystem did really well was that it had this very simple protocol which allowed a large ecosystem of app developers to emerge on top of it. There were like lots of venture-backed startups that were based on that open protocol at the time. And we thought, hey, that's something that ecosystem got very right. What if we can kind of take those learnings, use this new primitive of like a shared state, which allowed you to now have like a public index, which BitTorrent never had, to have like true ownership and like attribution, which BitTorrent never had, and build a truly open content distribution system. So that's sort of where the idea came from. So we've been building in this intersection of like crypto content distribution for a very long time.
Interesting. Yeah, fascinating. Thank you so much for that. So Joystream, doing some initial research, is very vertically integrated. You guys have your own blockchain, storage, like you just mentioned. So it really sounds like you're working on so many things. So could you maybe give us an overview of how the Joystream network works together?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. There are lots of different layers to it. So if you start at the base, we have an open data layer for all the content, the profiles, the social data, the social interaction. So like your likes and comments and follows, all this kind of stuff. That lives on its own dedicated blockchain, as you said. Then there's a user asset layer where you have video NFTs, you have social tokens that creators can issue to connect with their fans, raise money, this kind of stuff. That's also on the same custom built blockchain. Then there's the infrastructure side. So there's, of course, you need to basically solve two problems for the kind of system we're going for. You need to store data, archive it for the long term, and then you need to deliver it to end users on demand with low latency, kind of regardless of where they are in the world. So those two things also are built into the Joystream system. So we have a large number of node operators that run custom software for solving both of those problems. And they are paid and hired and kind of accountable to a DAO. So that's like another part of the system that is operating the platform. So if you want to like be part of this, you can bring your own hardware to the system. You need to stake some of the native token, and then you can get a reward. And then there's someone in the DAO hierarchy which will tell you what you're supposed to be doing, briefly stated. And then lastly, there's like a large suite of open source applications and tools and standards for people to build new applications. Those are sort of the different things in the project.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, sounds great. Now I kind of want to get into something more, juicy, about creator tokens, video NFTs. So could you say a little bit more about these two subjects and how it works?
Yeah, let me start with video NFTs because they're kind of like a base and also most familiar. So video NFTs are really like normal NFTs, but where the metadata is video rather than other formats that you're familiar with. So the reason we think this is actually extremely compelling for long tail content creators, video content creators, is that, there are lots of different ways NFTs can provide value and can be a good investment. But I think the most important source of utility from NFTs is that the owner gets to tell a story to the world around, who they are, their taste, the information they have, what values they have, really important things that people actually invest a lot of time and energy in doing. And we just think that video is such an immersive and compelling format. It's so shareable, it's so viral, it's so social. Unlike, art or imagery, which is like, most people don't consume that like in any substantial degree outside of the NFT space, but like video is like a highly engaging format. So we think that video NFTs are going to be a very compelling way for creators to be able to give this kind of public association between their art and people in their community. So those people can basically say, I stand with these values. I think this is cool. I think this is like, I have this kind of a taste, so that's kind of the video NFT dimension. So creators can mint and sell win NFTs. There's a built-in auction functionality and royalty functionality this is all in the same blockchain. Then you have the creator token side. That's also very exciting. What that allows creators to do is, video NFTs are primarily about revenue, whilst creator tokens are both about revenue, but also about financing. So if you want to engage in some project, maybe you want to go for you want to film some big project where you have to invest in some equipment, or you have to take a risk some way, or like you have to do something that requires resources up front. Your creator token, which you can issue on the Joystream blockchain, effectively it's like a revenue share token for your channel. So any revenue you receive as a creator, so either from selling video NFTs or from so there's a council in the governance body that can make payments to all the creators depending on whatever policy they want to apply. That revenue flow also is distributed to the creator token holders. So it really becomes a vehicle for people to kind of take a stake in your future earning power as a creator. And we have lots of really exciting features to make it kind of a fully fledged kind of financial product for creators. So there's a public sale functionality. There's a market making feature, which allows you to have some minimal amount of liquidity. There's vesting and access control. So you can kind of have some control over who's in your ecosystem, who has access to your token. So like these are like the basic components of the creator token. We think this is like a really unique thing that a lot of creators are going to find very valuable because, you know, it's so resource intensive to be a creator, in particular a video creator. You have to go so long, you know, you have to build an audience. It's really difficult, and financing I think would be a great addition to your set of tools to build your presence.
Transitions very well to the next question, which is about adoption. Adoption is, you know, obviously one of the most important parts of, you know, growing your platform. So could you tell us about what your strategy is for adoption and cultivating, you know, more greater adoption, you know, for your project?
Yeah, so the adoption strategy for the Joystream system is kind of a 3-tiered strategy because we have different audiences that we're trying to reach. So the most important audience is the creator audience because, you know, on one hand, they have the data, they own the data. They're the ones that have to bring both their data and their audience to the system. Without them, like, there's no show. They're also the people who have kind of, as a single individual, the most to gain, and they're like entrepreneurial and they hustle and they're willing to suffer through some friction to explore new opportunity. So, and also they're the smaller audience. So that's where we're focusing first. So we have a partner program that we've built where we allow creators on YouTube to sign up with a single click. And then all of their videos on YouTube automatically get ingested and published on Joystream. And then don't need to kind of think about Joystream or do anything in order to kind of get involved. They'll just do that. They'll get rewarded. Every additional video they publish on YouTube will result in a payment on Joystream. So it's sort of like a free option as a creator. It's a no-brainer. You get a free backup of your content. If something was going to happen to your channel on YouTube, or you get demonetized, or probably you're not even monetized, but anyway, you have this hedge there and a revenue source. And that's really the cornerstone of the go-to-market in terms of getting creators not to switch wholesale from day one, but to get them to kind of use multiple systems at the same time, which a lot of them already are kind of accustomed to do it. They might be using YouTube and Patreon, or YouTube and some other system. So they're the first kind of beachhead audience. The second are the builders. So the builders they're a precious commodity, but I think once they see that there is this pool of content that they can start to play with, that there are all these tools, that they can build new video products, and of course they can get support from the ecosystem, that's a very unique opportunity. As a builder, there's nowhere else you can really do that, right? Because YouTube doesn't have APIs that allows you to do this. This data is so precious that you really can't find it anywhere else. So that's like the next audience to start to build more differentiated experiences, like maybe focus on certain kind of verticals. As I said, maybe you want to make like a fitness version of Joystream, or like of user experience, or maybe you want to focus on some kind of sports or some religious emphasis, or like whatever you want to do. There are lots of verticals here. There's lots of ways to slice this pool of 2.5 billion monthly active users, and that's really the opportunity for them there. And then lastly, and that's very important, lastly is the consumer side, right? When you have the creators, you have the differentiated experiences, then the consumers will be attracted to both of those two things. And then the natural way to adopt them, to get them in, is also, of course, the creators themselves, because they will want to drive their audience to a place where they can get a deeper connection, can capture more value from them. Sort of in the way you see creators now maybe use YouTube, but then they tell people, if you want this extra benefit, go to Patreon, or go there, or do XYZ. So that's kind of the strategy that we're going for. Currently, I mean, we're still early days. We have about 13,000 or so videos. I think about 250 creators which have published at least one video, but we're growing a lot. I wish I had the numbers off the top of my head, but we're growing quite fast. So that's sort of where we are in terms of adoption.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the economic model behind your native token, Joy. Could you please maybe share some information about Joy to traders or investors or others who would be interested in this token?
Sure. So the native token Joy, which is the native token for the blockchain, is a mint and burn token. So it doesn't have a fixed supply, and it mints tokens in order to basically fund various kinds of expenses. So pay validators, pay stakers, pay all the work. Like I mentioned, there was a DAO, and there's like infrastructure, and there's like developers, and there's a marketing department. Like all these things are inside of the blockchain, not in some like corporate entity. Like it's all native to the system. It's very vertically integrated, as you said. So all these people have to be paid for the value they bring to the system. You have to pay the creators. So these things are funded by minting the native token. Then on the flip side, there are various sinks that result in burning the native token. So one is burning when you publish a transaction. You have to burn a certain amount. So this is similar to the way Ethereum now works. Whenever you do any kind of these very high value actions, like minting a video NFT, starting a public sale for your creator token, you do a transaction in the market maker for a creator token, these kind of features, then there's also like a burn dynamic. And lastly, this is a little bit into the future, the goal is for application developers. Let's say you build an application, you service like a few 100,000 people, and you're monetizing them. Maybe you use like Visa payments, subscriptions, not even crypto. Maybe your audience doesn't even know there's crypto involved, but you as an innovator get access to this data. You of course need to pay for what you're doing, for the infrastructure, for the creators that made all that content. So what will happen there is that the application developers will need to burn a certain quantity of tokens as a function of the kind of volume of consumption through their application. So that's like the final source of burning the native token. Minting to cover expenses and burning to capture value. That's kind of the dynamic of the token value itself.
Excellent. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about what Joystream has in mind for future milestones for the project. So could you get out your crystal ball and tell us what you can about what we can look forward to in the second half of 2023 and beyond?
So obviously it's very important to continue building on the great start we've had to our partner program. So that's a very important one we will continue to do and adopt more creators. And I think we'll just keep going faster and faster because the value proposition there is such a no-brainer. I think beyond that, in terms of product, the two most exciting things I'm looking forward to is we're building a kind of wallet experience that allows someone to get inside the application as a consumer or a creator without having to install an extension in their browser, which we find to be a very large barrier to entry. So we found a way, taking inspiration from some other DApps we've seen in the space, where you can both combine a kind of non-custodial model. So we or the application developer doesn't need to actually have access to the funds, but at the same time, you don't need a browser extension like a MetaMask to be installed for a mainstream user in order to log in and use their profile. And the way you do that is you give up a little bit of security, which we think is appropriate as like an onboarding step for a user. And so I think that rolling that out, which is going to happen pretty soon, is really exciting for lowering the bar for anyone, whether a creator or consumer, to try out the applications. And another one is to actually roll out this creator token functionality. So it's really it is part of the blockchain, it's part of the indexing infrastructure, like it's all there, but productizing it in a user experience where people can actually just do like a point and click kind of interaction to launch a token and so on. That still remains to be delivered, and that's probably going to happen in the next quarter as well. So that's also super exciting.
Excellent. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much, Badejo, for sharing with us so many insights. I don't want to give you too many more questions, but it has been my honor today to interview you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.